I really don't see the benefit of interracial marriages to society. They diminish culture, they diminish children's sense of belonging, they diminish citizenships, they diminish what it means to be of a nation or of a place. Because imagine someone is born in Malawi and another person is born in France. If they two get married, their child will be mixed. And will they really be French or will they be Malawian? Would they really be black or would they be white? Neither group would accept them as white or black. So what happens is that you automatically have a child that does not have proper identity. What is his native language? Is his native language the language of Malawi, and or is it the native language of the French people? What exactly is his or her native language? What exactly is their culture? What food do they identify themselves as saying, okay, this food is like my native food? Will they have say the Malawian food or will they say the French food? So what happens is that the child is in this middle ground and in which they don't really belong anywhere. And if they probably go to a French school, they will probably not really be recognized as French. And if they go to a Malawian school, they'll be not really recognized as Malawian. It's the same thing if you have a Chinese person married to a person who's from Brazil. When they go to a Chinese school, they'll be, as much as this is not great, but as a result, they'll probably be facing racist remarks at school. At school, not everyone will see them as a foreigner. They won't really be Chinese. The person will be like, I don't know, maybe of another country or just another race. They won't be seen as exactly Chinese or Brazilian. And what happens is that in the household, what language do you speak? Do you speak Portuguese? Do you speak Chinese? What exactly are you going to speak? What's going to be the native language or native tongue of the child? And that's just not really the only problem. How exactly do you run a household that has two different cultures? One's culture is to eat with, I don't know, fork and knife. One's culture is to eat with your hands. It seems very trivial, but those things are the things that matter to a child. Like if someone is born in a house where they eat with fork and knife, they're most likely going to raise their children in a house that they eat with fork and knife. And that goes the same with for hands and all that. But if you have a marriage that you have someone who eats with hands and someone who eats with a fork and knife, how exactly does that make sense? You're going to have their father eating with fork and knife and then their mother eating with their hands. The child is just going to be like, why aren't my parents eating the same? What exactly am I supposed to follow? And then you see the son leans towards one side, and then the other side gets upset that the son or the daughter is leaning towards one side. And when they lean towards one side, even though they lean towards one side, when they go back to that country that they've leaned towards, they won't really be saying like called like of the nation. They'll be like, oh, yeah, you're like mixed race. And mixed race is not really a nationality. If they can have a Brazilian passport, like that doesn't really mean anything. But they don't look anything Brazilian, nor do they look Chinese. So where are they? They're in that middle ground of just weirdness, and the child will just be confused, like, where is my native land? And the importance of having a land that someone calls this is my native land, or this is my native language, or this is that, is so important to like um a child's upbringing, because if they don't really have a place or a language or a way of living that they know to be native, they just know half this and half that, they don't really belong anywhere. They don't really have a proper national identity. And okay, some people can say that's okay, but that down the line of the child's life would be confusing. And where exactly do they say they're from? Like, let's say someone says, oh, where are you from? Do they say they're Brazilian or do they say they're Chinese, right? And like some people will be like, oh yeah, they say where they were born and raised. But I'm like, okay, what if they were born and raised there, but like the complete household culture was just Chinese? So like they just really say, okay, I'm Chinese, but I was born and raised here. So it's just like, okay, now I don't know where I'm from. Like you have no identity, you're confused, everything is just chaotic. And that brings about so many problems with the child. But aside from the child, just even what happens in interracial marriages or inter like thing marriages is the husband and wife or the mother and father, right, are often of two different religions. So if a Chinese man marries a Brazilian man, as my earlier example, one is most likely Christian and one is more likely Buddhist. will one convert to the other? And I see now in the modern world, we're like, oh no, interreligious marriages are fine. Just don't force the other to convert and don't pay attention to it. One goes to church on Sunday, the other goes to pray at the temple on like Friday. It's all fine. When you have a child, what exactly are you going to do? Is that child going to be going to church? Or is that child going to be going to, I don't know, the temple, the mosque? Where is the child going to go? And it even happens for interdenominations when it comes to Christianity, where you have a mother goes to a Baptist church and the father goes to a Catholic church, and the child sometimes just switches. This is the case of J.D. Vance and his wife, where his children are both half Indian and half American. And the children sometimes go to the temple with the mother, I think, and the mother is Hindu, right? And they embrace the Hindu culture sometimes. And then, but father really wants the whole family to be Catholic. So we have a problem there where he's openly saying, I wish my wife like switches religion, but I'm pretty sure that he went home to a wife being uncomfortable. Like, why would you say that in public? Why would you say that I want me to switch religions? He's being honest, but the thing is that look, when you have that sort of marriage dynamic, you can't really talk about those things because when you do talk about those things, they hurt feelings. I'll say your religion is dumb. Because look, for me to believe in Catholicism, I need to believe that Islam is dumb. For me to believe in Islam, I have to believe Hinduism is stupid, right? So you have to, there's no balance in there. You can't have a household where you believe two different religions, maybe two different political views. Someone can say, I voted for Kamala Harris. Someone can say, I voted for Donald Trump. Maybe that's fine. But when it comes to religion, becomes so problematic. And then another issue that I can reference from the same JD Vance and Asha Vance marriage is the child's name is Vivek. So your child's name is Vivek, right? So you're like in Vivek Vance, right? So in that name, where exactly is the American culture? Vivek is a purely Indian name, right? Purely Indian name. How do you even pick names when you're in an interracial marriage? Because if you're from India, Vivek is such a common name. It's fine, right? But like when you name your child, like you're like, okay, I want to name it according to my culture. And then you're like, no, I want to name this child according to my culture. How exactly do you decide? One person in the marriage has to fold. And in a marriage, when one person folds constantly to please the other, that's the start of the marriage falling. Like often in this generation, men fold for the women. Whatever the woman wants, you do, you do, you do. But that's not okay because that's not a happy marriage. That's a marriage of one person trying to make another person happy, even though some decisions may hurt them. That's not a marriage. You know, there's the term saying happy wife, happy life, the most BS term or like quote ever. Because when you have a happy wife and you have an unhappy male, that's why there's a lot of adultery. That's why a man will leave the house and go to a woman that makes him feel like a man. Because the woman, when he goes home, the woman's always bossing him around saying, no, I couldn't cook because of this. I couldn't do this because of this. Because you don't have a balanced marriage. You don't have a marriage where one says this, one says that. You come to a conclusion or middle ground. One just folds to the other. And look, eventually you're not going to be happy. And to be honest, I see the JD Vance marriage together with Asha Vance, unless she converts to Catholicism, eventually they'll have an issue with the children and they'll be like, one child will be like, I'm Hindu. And then the father will be like, no, you're Catholic. And then the mother will be like, no, it's fine if he's Hindu. Then he's like, no. What happens there? It's instant divorce. It's instant problems. And you end up having a household that's toxic, that you can't talk about a topic. And when you have households that you can't talk about topics, that's the end of a marriage. Anyway, those are really the problems with interracial and interreligious marriages.